The galaxy had already chosen Earth's fate long before the first shot was fired, because to the old alien empire's humanity was nothing more than a noisy, curious species that had learned to crawl into space too fast for its own good. And now that belief was being tested as Captain Elias Rook stood on the command deck of the human warship Uns Resolute, watching dark shapes tear open space itself as the Varkish Dominion fleet arrived. One massive warship after another sliding out of hyperspace like blades drawn from shadow. Their hulls ancient and cruel, their weapons built to crush worlds. While warning lights washed the bridge in red and quiet fear moved through the crew like a cold wind, because everyone could see the numbers and understand the truth that 12 human defense ships were all that stood between Earth and destruction. And below them, the blue planet turned peacefully, unaware that extinction had come knocking. The Varkesh did not waste time with fear or anger, because they had erased thousands of civilizations before and saw no reason this day would be different. So their commander appeared on every screen at once, tall and armored, eyes flat and unfeeling, announcing in a voice that carried no emotion that humans must surrender their fleets and their world or be erased. And when the message ended, the silence on the bridge felt heavier than the gravity of a planet. Yet Rook did not shout or panic, because he had lived his whole life knowing this moment might come. And when he finally spoke, his voice was calm, reminding his crew that the enemy believed humans were weak, outdated, predictable. And that belief was the only real weapon the Varkesh had brought with them. Far away, hidden behind the moon in careful silence, the true hope of humanity waited, a machine never tested in battle, never shown to the galaxy, built not with alien elegance but with human stubbornness, raw metal, and simple purpose. A massive railgun stretching across the lunar surface like a scar, its magnetic rails cold and waiting. And as engineers finished charging systems that pushed the edge of what physics allowed, Dr. Hayes reported that the weapon was ready but unstable, that the first real shot might tear it apart. And Rook accepted that risk without hesitation because humanity had never survived by playing safe. When the Varkesh commander returned to mock the idea that humans could harm them, Rook answered not with threats but with quiet confidence, and in that moment something shifted, because for the first time the alien did not sound fully certain. And then the order was given and the railgun awakened, magnetic fields roaring across the moon, pulling a solid metal slug forward with forces strong enough to bend space itself. And when it fired, there was no bright flash or loud sound, only a sudden absence, as if the universe blinked. And the projectile crossed the vast distance in moments before striking the heart of the Varkesh flagship, not exploding but erasing it, punching through shields, armor, and reactors as if they were smoke, leaving nothing but torn fragments drifting where a symbol of alien power had existed seconds before. And across the battlefield weapons went quiet as shock rippled through every watching mind, because no energy weapon had been used, no ancient technology, just speed, mass, and human refusal to accept limits. Fear spread where confidence once lived, and the silence that followed was not empty but full of understanding. As alien captains realized that humans had changed the rules of war with a single shot, while on the Resolute, the crew stared in disbelief at the sensors confirming what their eyes could hardly accept, and Captain Rook allowed himself one slow breath, knowing the battle was far from over, but also knowing that history had already shifted, because the galaxy had just learned that humanity was not prey, not servants, not a footnote waiting to be erased, but a force willing to build impossible weapons in secret and fire them when the moment demanded it. And as the wreckage of the Varkesh flagship drifted in silence, every star system watching understood the same truth, that something new and dangerous had awakened among the stars, and nothing would ever feel the same again. After the first railgun shot tore through the Varkesh flagship, The enemy fleet froze for a moment that stretched like eternity, their perfectly ordered lines breaking under the weight of something they had never anticipated, a simple metal slug moving faster than thought. And Captain Elias Rook watched from the Resolute as confusion rippled through the alien formation, sensors blinking warnings and readings that no tactical manual had ever prepared for. Because the Varkish had fought countless civilizations, faced weapons designed to burn planets and collapse stars. But none of those had acted with the quiet, unstoppable force that humans had just unleashed. And the bridge of the Resolute was alive with energy and fear. Sailors gripping consoles, hearts racing, yet their captain remained steady, calm. And his quiet confidence spread to the crew, reminding them that the galaxy had underestimated humanity for too long. The alien commander's voice returned over the communications channel, cracking with static and disbelief, demanding to know what weapon had caused such destruction, and Rook answered simply, "A railgun," letting the weight of that word hang in the void. Because it was not a bluff, it was truth. And for the first time the Varkish did not sound certain, just uneasy, calculating what this meant for their centuries of dominance, and then the real battle began. As enemy ships powered up their weapons and space erupted into chaos, beams of alien energy tearing through darkness, human ships dodging, weaving, and returning fire with desperation and courage, while the Resolute shuddered under every strike, alarms screaming, fire erupting in compartments, crew members thrown from stations, yet each person moved with purpose, saving what they could and staying on task because humanity's strength had never been in perfection, but in resilience and ingenuity. And Lieutenant Murachun shouted over the cacophony that they were losing ships fast, that systems were failing. But Rook knew that every moment bought by human sacrifice brought the Railgun closer to another critical shot. And engineers on the moon worked frantically, sweat and fear mixing as they adjusted capacitors and realigned magnetic rails, knowing that the weapon could only fire a few more times before it tore itself apart. And with every pulse of energy the humans felt the strain, the knowledge that their lives and the fate of Earth rested on timing, precision, and courage. Because once the Varkesh realized the threat, they would do everything to stop it. As the aliens adapted, spreading their ships, raising shields, and attempting to flank, Rook issued calm, precise commands, maneuvering the Resolute and its small, human fleet into positions that maximized their survival and the Railgun's effectiveness. Human fighters darting like angry wasps among massive enemy hulls, hitting weak points, sacrificing themselves when necessary to protect the warship and the moon base. And Rook watched as some of the bravest pilots died in fireballs that lit space brighter than stars. Feeling the grief but knowing that human determination was stronger than fear, that their will could defy impossible odds. And when the Varkish launched boarding crafts and missiles, the Resolute took hit after hit, the hull groaning under strain, yet Rook refused to yield, issuing orders that kept evacuation paths clear and the Railgun on target. Because he understood that the weapon represented more than destruction. It represented hope, and the ability to show the galaxy that humans could fight even when facing extinction. The Railgun fired again, one ship after another of the Varkesh disappearing as the magnetic slug cut through armor and shields with mechanical precision. But the weapon was fragile, straining under the force of each shot. And Dr. Hayes' voice trembled as she reported that the structure would not survive many more shots. Yet they had no choice, for every second the Varkesh gained ground. More human ships fell, more lives were lost. And the alien fleet's relentless advance brought them closer to the moon itself, threatening the very platform from which humanity's hope fired. And as the Resolute accelerated into the enemy line, taking hits to draw attention and protect the Railgun, Rook felt the weight of command as bodies burned, metal twisted, and alarms screamed. knowing some of his crew would not survive the day, but understanding that sacrifice was the currency of survival, that courage and ingenuity could make up for smaller numbers and weaker weapons, because humans had always done more with less, and their refusal to submit to inevitability made them dangerous. Amid the chaos, small victories sparkled like stars, human fighters taking down enemy ships against impossible odds, ramming maneuvers that destroyed multiple alien vessels at once. And Rook saw the pattern of battle shift as confusion among the Varkesh grew, their perfectly calculated attacks failing, communication breaking down under the weight of fear and unexpected loss, while humans pressed on, relentless, resourceful, and unwilling to yield, and with each railgun shot fired, with each alien ship removed from the battlefield, the tide began to turn, though the cost was high. The moon base took direct hits, engineering teams risking their lives to keep the weapon operational, the atmosphere of fear and courage mingling until it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. As the final sequence approached, Rook watched, knowing that the railgun's last shot had to count, that it would determine whether humanity survived or whether Earth would burn. And he smiled faintly, a mix of exhaustion and determination, telling Hayes to prepare the weapon for one final fire, understanding fully that the structure might collapse after this, that the cost could be ultimate, yet trusting that human resolve could deliver victory even when the odds seemed insurmountable. And as the final shot sped across the void, carving a path through the heart of the Varkesh fleet, tearing apart ships that had never known fear, a silence fell over the battlefield that was heavier than any explosion. A silence filled with recognition, shock, and the undeniable proof that humans could challenge even the oldest, most powerful forces in the galaxy. And as the remaining enemy ships fled in disarray, the weight of the moment settled over the survivors of the human fleet, their exhaustion, grief, and relief mixing with the pride that they had endured, that they had stood in the face of annihilation, and that humanity's first railgun had not only destroyed ships, but had shifted the perception of the galaxy, proving that while humans might be small, young, and underestimated, their courage, creativity, and unyielding determination made them a force that even gods could not ignore. And in that silence, the echo of human will resounded, carrying the knowledge that fear had changed sides, that the Varkesh now understood that humans would fight, adapt, and survive against impossible odds, and that the galaxy itself would never again treat Earth as insignificant, because the day had arrived when a single human weapon, powered by ingenuity and stubbornness, had reminded the stars that humans could not be dismissed, that their heart and spirit made them unpredictable and dangerous, and that every action, every life lost, every risk taken in the heat of battle was part of a story that would be told for generations. The story of courage that bent physics and fear alike, leaving a mark on the galaxy as deep as the railgun's slug tore through the heart of alien arrogance. And as the survivors regrouped, tending to the wounded and preparing for whatever else might come, they understood that their strength lay not only in weapons but in their will, their ability to defy expectation, and their refusal to bow before power, proving in the harsh light of battle that humans could rise when all seemed lost, that ingenuity, determination, and sacrifice could level the playing field against even the most overwhelming odds, and that hope, even in the smallest numbers, could ignite a fire capable of changing the course of a war and perhaps the course of history itself. After the final railgun shot had torn through the heart of the Varkesh fleet, a fragile silence settled across the battlefield, broken only by the distant crackle of dying systems and the faint hum of human ships drifting among the wreckage. And for the first time in days, the crew of the Uns Resolute and the engineers on the moon could breathe, though the weight of what they had endured pressed heavily on them. because victory had come at an enormous cost, with lives lost, ships destroyed, and the Railgun itself reduced to a twisted, smoking ruin that could never fire again. Yet despite the destruction, humanity had proven something that no alien empire had expected: that courage, ingenuity, and relentless will could overcome even the most overwhelming odds. Earth itself watched in awe as sensors reported the retreat of the remaining Varkesh vessels, scattered and broken and across the galaxy. News began to spread, first slowly, then with increasing speed, that a species once considered weak and insignificant had dared to stand, to fight, and to strike with devastating precision. And in the days that followed, alien empires that had once ignored humanity approached with caution, sending cautious messages, requests for talks, and offers of alliances, unsure whether humans were friends, threats, or something in between, because they had seen firsthand that humans could defy expectation and survive the impossible. On the moon, Dr. Hayes walked among the remains of the Railgun, touching scorched metal and broken circuits, feeling the weight of decades of work, sacrifices of countless engineers, and the lives of those who had given everything to make this moment possible. And she understood that the weapon's destruction did not mean failure, for the Railgun had done exactly what it was meant to do: show the galaxy that humanity could wield power in ways no one had anticipated, that simplicity and ingenuity could outmatch centuries of arrogance and experience, and that human determination could turn the tide of war even against gods. Captain Rook, having survived the battle though many around him had not, returned to Earth in silence, carrying the stories of bravery, loss, and victory, knowing that the legends of the battle would grow, but that the memory of friends and crew lost would always remain vivid. And he spent long hours speaking with commanders, strategists, and political leaders, ensuring that humanity understood both the cost and the lesson of their triumph, that the future depended not only on power but on unity, courage, and the willingness to act decisively when the moment demanded it. Children across human colonies listened to stories of the battle wide-eyed, learning not only of destruction and fear but of determination, ingenuity, and the unyielding human spirit, while scientists and engineers studied the Railgun's design, inspired to imagine new ways to protect humanity, push technology further, and create weapons and tools that combine simplicity with overwhelming effectiveness, because humans had discovered that the galaxy respected results more than complexity, and courage more than experience, and that even in a universe ruled by ancient powers, a young species could rewrite what was possible with will, intelligence, and sacrifice. Survivors from the battle rebuilt shattered fleets and reinforced planetary defenses, training new generations of humans to think differently, to act boldly, and to never underestimate the value of ingenuity in the face of raw power. While diplomats cautiously navigated the cautious respect and fear now directed toward humanity, negotiating treaties that had once been impossible, reminding the galaxy that humans were not to be dismissed, and that the species that had once been written off as insignificant now held a presence that could not be ignored. Because the story of the Railgun, of the battle, and of the courage of Captain Rook and his crew had become a symbol, a warning, and a promise all at once. The galaxy itself seemed to pause and take note, with alien commanders reconsidering strategies, military academies teaching the story of a species that could face impossible odds and strike back with terrifying simplicity. And the memory of that day, the day a single human Railgun changed the course of a war, echoed in conversations, histories, and planning rooms, not as myth, but as proof that humanity's combination of will, intelligence, and unpredictability made them an unpredictable and dangerous force, and that no empire could rely on assumptions about weakness when humans were involved. The survivors of the battle, still grieving, still weary, still carrying the scars of both body and mind, understood that their actions had done more than protect Earth. They had changed the perception of the entire galaxy, showing that humans could fight, adapt, and prevail even when outnumbered, outgunned, and facing annihilation. And they knew that the cost of that lesson had been high, but that it had cemented humanity's place in the stars, not as pawns, not as prey, but as a species capable of shaping its own destiny through courage, ingenuity, and the refusal to yield. Across the colonies, memorials were built for the lost, and the stories of the battle were recorded in every form imaginable: holograms, histories, songs, and lectures, ensuring that the heroism, sacrifice, and strategy of that day would never be forgotten, and that future generations would understand both the fragility and strength of humanity, that they could fall, but if they stood together, they could face gods and leave them trembling. As Earth turned in the quiet of space, peaceful once more, the memory of the Railgun, its firing, and the silence that followed became a part of human culture, a symbol of the species' resilience, resourcefulness, and indomitable will. And for Captain Rook, Dr. Hayes, and every survivor, that day represented a turning point, a moment when humanity had stared down annihilation and answered not with despair, but with action, intelligence, and courage, proving that even the smallest, youngest civilizations could leave a mark on a galaxy filled with ancient empires, that bravery and determination could shift power, and that the legacy of that day would echo forever in the stars, reminding all who looked up that humans, though underestimated, were a force to be reckoned with, capable of shaping the future through sacrifice, ingenuity, and the unbreakable spirit that had allowed a single species to fire a railgun and make the galaxy go silent, not in fear alone, but in awe of what humanity could achieve when pushed to the edge.